Now, despite laws to the contrary, the federal government is moving to create national education standards that will significantly reduce state control. So, how is the Obama administration using backdoor measures to standardize school curriculums in elementary and secondary education? Joining me today to explain how this is being achieved is Bill Evers, a research fellow at the Hoover Institution and former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education Policy. Dr. Evers, thanks so much for being with me today. And talk a little bit about this shift in education policy. How is the president using No Child Left Behind to exert more federal power over education?
Well, thank you for having me. States set up a list of the content that the children are going to learn in each grade, and they do tests to see if the children are learning what is expected in each grade. And so they have to report that they have such standards and that they're doing this testing to the federal government under No Child Left Behind. But what the federal government is doing is it's taking the fact that the states have these tests and it's giving special rewards in the form of eligibility for grants, and then it's also paying for national tests, and it's looking forward in its proposed revision of the federal aid to education law, now called the No Child Left Behind law. And it's saying that under that, there are going to be national standards and national testing. So it's a combination of strong inducements and paying for national tests, paying for national curriculum, paying for frameworks, in other words, sort of overarching guidelines of national curriculum. So it's a combination of things, but they are directing and endorsing curriculum, testing, and an outline of curriculum. And these are things that are actually forbidden under federal law.
Yeah, I remember there was a big push in the mid-90s to kind of get these national standards. But talk a little bit about the states that are opting into this, because it seems like the federal government is kind of dangling the money for schools in order
Yes.
in order for them to do this. I mean, what options do the states have?
Well, first of all, you're completely correct. There were two pushes in the 1990s to do this, both under the Clinton administration, one in his first term and one in his second, and they both collapsed. And they both came under scrutiny because of these federal laws that outlaw federal and U.S. Department of Education push on curriculum. So these are outlawed in 3 laws. But you're right also that over 45 states have succumbed to this pressure and these inducements. And at the same time, some of them are already sort of working on backing out or considering backing out. So it's a combination of forward movement toward this complete nationalization of school curriculum. Curriculum is what is taught in the classroom, what the lesson plans are, what the teaching materials are. So this is being nationalized, and it's really quite an upset of our historic constitutional balance between the states and the national government.
No, I mean, you've done detailed reports on this, and the Obama administration is referring to this as Common Core state standards initiatives. But as a parent, what gives you cause for concern about these sort of national standards?
Well, I think that in the past, we've seen, and even right now in Texas, improving its standards in reading and math. We see states trying, to some extent, they see a matter of pride to get better at these things, both the tests that they have and how challenging they are, and how challenging the curriculum is, what is taught, what the topics are that the children need to learn, and by what grade. So, for example, we've had a big push over the years in the United States to get to algebra in 8th grade, which is what the highest performing countries in the world do. But the national standards lock in Algebra 1 in 9th grade. So we're going to be, right from the outset, at least a year behind the high-performing countries. So as a parent whose children would be competing in the world marketplace, I would be distressed that they are being held back like this.
Now, we keep hearing about this program called Race to the Top. It sounds like more like a race to the bottom. I mean, is there any empirical data that demonstrates that these programs are actually effective at accomplishing their intended goals?
These national standards, the Common Core standards, are not really, they've never been tested anyplace. They're just being foisted on the entire country. And just to give you an example, there's a way of teaching similar and congruent triangles. And this is in geometry. It's a central aspect of geometry. And for your listeners, side angle, side angle, side angle, just to let them dig into the deep recesses of their memory. But they have a completely new way. And it's never been successfully used in any city, in any state or province in the world, in any country in the world, this way of teaching similar and congruent triangles. But they're going to, in a sort of utopian fantasy, impose this on the entire country. I think that's rather ill-advised.
Yeah, I remember having to suffer through geometry back in the day. And I mean, how many ways are there to teach this kind of things? But, you know, we've seen
there are a lot of ways. There are a lot of ways. That the question is, if you're experimenting with a new way, why don't you try it in a few schools or in one town
instead of nationalizing
instead of trying it on the whole country? I think that's just, rather odd.
Well, exactly. And, you know, we've seen so many times this president kind of has this attitude that, well, if he doesn't like what Congress is doing, he's going to do it alone.
Right.
I mean, do you see, what can Congress do about that to stop this power grab essentially from happening?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. This is another example of Obama's both his federal overreach and his idea that the executive branch really can be making the law. So he's doing backdoor legislating. He's doing it through waivers to No Child Left Behind. So No Child Left Behind says if their schools are not teaching at grade, the kids are not learning at grade level by 2014, there'll be various important financial penalties. So they're letting the states and the schools out of this accountability, and in return, the states and the schools have to adopt these national standards and these national tests. So there is this serious problem of federal overreach, of lawmaking by the executive branch, of I can't wait for Congress and I'm kind of the ruler and be making law. And it's quite troubling. I completely concur with you. And they're in direct violation of 3 federal statutes: the Department of Education Organization Act, the General Education Provisions Act, and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. They all say no directing of curriculum.
Well, Dr. Evers, thank you so much for joining with us today. And exactly, I mean, getting back to local control is just so important. And thank you for making us aware of this issue.
And that's where we can see innovation and improvement that help our actual children in our actual classrooms.
Absolutely. I mean, the parents and community know best, I think a little bit better than government when it comes to how their children's education is. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's important to watch at every level, but thank you.
And Dr. Evers is a research fellow with the Hoover Institution, and you can find him online by visiting hoover.org. For PJTV, I'm Alexis Garcia. Thanks for watching.